Well, hello and welcome to another podcast. My guest today is Ian Dyball, one-time Governor of the Rotary District 9650, Director of the Rotary Club of Taree, and District Chair for the End Trachoma project, which we want to be talking about today. Ian, a big welcome to you.
Thank you. I very much look forward to spreading the word and promoting the great news that Rotary is doing with this End Trachoma program.
Fabulous. Well, these video podcasts are going out, one would hope, to many different Rotary clubs, and we've featured some terrific people, great speakers, wonderful projects, and I think any work among our Indigenous First Nations people really should be honoured and looked at closely. So thank you so much for making yourself available today.
My pleasure.
Let's talk about trachoma, because that surprises me a little bit. I thought we'd eliminated trachoma in this country. I didn't think we had an issue with trachoma. Can you tell us where we're at?
Yes, just very briefly. I guess I got involved with this program because at a district conference 4 or 5 years ago, we learnt that Australia is the only developed country in the world where trachoma is still endemic. And it is very much the case with our Indigenous people, remote communities. It's a debilitating eye disease which can ultimately lead to permanent blindness. And when I learnt that the Indigenous elders said we have a right not to go blind, I thought, well, okay, here's an opportunity for me to become involved. They were looking for a volunteer to chair the district committee, put my hand up and I'm going with it.
Yeah. Do you know what kind of frequency or what kind of age group are afflicted by trachoma among Indigenous communities? Does it affect all ages?
It's primarily the younger people, and that is our target, the up to about 12-year-old, 5 to 12-year-old. The incidence of trachoma has fallen quite considerably over the last decade. It's come down from about, I think, just over 20% to 3.8% currently.
Sorry, from 20%. 20% of Indigenous children in Australia are afflicted with trachoma.
That's right.
Wow.
Yes, wow. Yes, it's not something that Australia can be proud of.
No.
But what we are doing about it, we can be proud of. And I think that's the significant thing. We can be very, very proud of the efforts to bring it down. Had great success in the APY lands of northwest South Australia, the goldfields of Western Australia, but I guess I'd call them the hotspots right now, the Northern Territory, and we've become aware more and more so of that situation in outback Western Queensland. So that's our area of concentration now.
And presumably it can be eliminated with the right treatment, is that correct?
Very interesting. Yes, the answer to that is yes. I was on a national meeting of our End Trachoma people, a bit over 12 months ago. And our guest speaker at that was a Professor Hugh Taylor, who is the Professor of Indigenous Eye Health at Melbourne University. I just looked at Hugh and said, I'm a professional engineer. I look for simple, easy solutions. Yes. Come on, Hugh, what's the solution? He said, Ian, keep the children's faces clean for 1 year and there will be no more trachoma. I thought, wow, that's certainly getting the message out there. So I thought about that. Then I decided that I would ring I don't know what led me to do it, but I rang the lady by the name of Julie Wright, Health Department in Alice Springs. Talked to her about the issue of trachoma and keeping these children's faces clean. And I came up with this concept of these toiletry kits. So with Julie, we worked out what would be the typical sorts of things that we would put in these toiletry kits that we would offer to the schools. Now, things like face washer, hand towel, soap container, toothbrush container, shampoo, conditioner, brush and comb, reusable drink bottle. So they had their own personal drink bottle. And all of these were go into a very brightly coloured cotton bag, which we had made up. So that's how this whole thing came about. Keep the children's faces clean for 1 year and there will be no more trachoma.
Okay.
It can be eliminated.
Uh-huh.
So that's our program, Ian, is to eliminate, and we recognise that the Fred Hollows Foundation and so many other organisations are doing great work with the treatment of it. We want to just go back one step and eliminate it.
Mm-hmm. So your emphasis is on prevention.
It is.
Preventative measures, particularly among children.
That's right.
Because it's a bacterial infection that can go from child to child.
That's right. Yes, very contagious.
Yeah. So what you've put into this toiletry bag has been well considered to keep bacterial infection at bay, keep these faces clean. And okay, so you talk with this, well, this professor came and spoke to your group, your district, and you being an engineer, and I love engineers, always finding those solutions and asking questions. How can we fix this problem? So good on you. And what did you do? You contacted this lady in the Department of Education up there, and she said, "Well, why don't you?"
The health department.
Oh, the health department. And
yep.
And did she put you in touch with the education department? How did you come to
go to
the school?
Okay. So what happened is that well, actually, it was very interesting. The very day that I spoke with Julie Wright in Alice Springs, I was the guest speaker at the Rotary Club of Dorrigo, some 3 hours north of Taree, talking about the End Trachoma program. And almost as an aside, I mentioned that I had this discussion with this health professional in Alice Springs and came up with this concept of these toiletry health bags. And two of the club members took me aside, Sarah and Christine, and said, "Hey, we like the sound of this. We want to get involved." Righto. So I put this whole concept to our national organisers, and they said, "Right, let's go with it." The Rotary Club of Dorrigo got the schools involved. They had a End Trachoma Day at the schools. They got the community involved, and they sent 82 of these kits up to the Northern Territory, Papunya, Tea Tree, and Fink.
Right.
But the national committee said, "Well, okay, we like this idea. Let's see if we can make up 1,000 bags, 1,000 of these kits to go up to the Northern Territory," which was our hotspot. The 1,000 very quickly became 2,000, 3,000.
Gosh.
And as I speak to you today, the figure is about 3,500 and still growing.
Mm. So it really is becoming quite a widespread program. I'd like to talk specifically about the school that the Rotary Club at Taree has had a partnership with, but I'm just also trying to understand the scope with which this program has been rolled out. So it's actually gone to a number of communities, and different clubs are putting together these toiletry bags and sending them.
Yes, yep. So how did the Rotary Club of Taree become involved? My home club. I thought, well, I better put out a challenge. I said, look, there are 40 members in our club. The least we can do is 40 of these kits. President David Denning immediately said, "No, Ian, we'll make it 100. Okay, so we had this commitment to make 100 out of the then stage national 1,000. I put that to the organisers, and they contacted the Department of Education in Alice Springs to find a school with about 100 students that we could be partnered with.
Okay.
And I think they think that I would make very, very clear, Ian, is that we don't say, "School, there are the bags." we want the school to say, we need them, we want them. So we have to get their permission to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we were linked with, or partnered with the school in a community called Ali Karung, 378 kilometres north of Alice Springs, just off the Stewart Highway. We were told they had about 100 students. I ultimately made a phone call, had a long discussion with their principal, Colin Keel, a very, very dynamic young leader. But he told me, no, the school has about 190 students. Whoops. So when I mentioned this to the Rotary Club of Taree, they said, righto, we'll make 200 kids.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
As easy and as simple as that. Well, it wasn't quite as easy and as simple as that. But anyhow, we decided that we would do that.
Because I guess a lot of these kids, they come from outstations, and absenteeism is a real issue sometimes for good reasons. Kids aren't at school.
Yes, well, I can talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
But what I would like to highlight with the Rotary Club of Taree's involvement is that we got our own members, partners involved, but also I'd have to acknowledge the Anglican parish of Taree, just superb in their support. The parish priest is a member of our Rotary Club, so I guess that's a bit of a help. But our parish was very much the coordinator of the fire recovery effort when the bushfires went through the Manning Valley. And we had a large number of items that were, like I say, surplus to the needs for the bushfire recovery. So they helped with our toiletry kits. Everything was stored in the parish hall, and we used that as our assembly line when we made them all.
Mm-hmm.
So the Anglican parish of Taree has been very, very supportive of this, as has been the Manning Valley removalists. We have, over the last 6 months, sent up 60 removalist boxes to our school, Ali Karung.
That's
and they were provided free of charge by Manning Valley removalists.
Yeah.
So, Rotary networking partnerships,
yes,
they work well. They work well.
Absolutely, they do. And yeah, when we talk about Rotary, we're not just talking about a club that meets independent of a community. We're talking about a group of people that actually represent the heart of a community.
Very much so. Very much so.
So we have
church.
It
was interesting. You mentioned the issue of attendance, and at Ali Karung School, an enrolment presently of 163, might get 60 or 70 students there each day. 100 students they might get that once or twice a term. So the attendance rate is not particularly good, but it's compounded by the fact that in any one day, teacher might have, say, 20 students in the class. But tomorrow, it might be a different 20, or 15 of them might be different. So it's very, very difficult to have continuity of curriculum and teaching. So one of the important things is to make learning fun for the students, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah. I think the dedication of those teachers in those remote communities is extraordinary. I'm sure there's some bad eggs, that have probably been in the bush too long, but I went through Teachers College with a number of those people, and their capacity to connect with culture and to work hard and to be in those communities as a servant to the communities is really quite extraordinary. So this Colin sounds like a wonderful fellow, and it's terrific that you've been able to have that partnership.
Look, the physical conditions at that school, Ali Karung, are absolutely atrocious. We were warned before we went up there, and as I think I've mentioned to you, our now immediate past president, David Denning, and I went up to the school a week after those toiletry kits were delivered. The school was built in 1955, I think it was 1956, and it looks like nothing has been done to improve it or to maintain it. The whole school is in a very, very poor condition. That has not in any way detracted from the dedication and the commitment of these teachers. Look, it just shone through. It was just beautiful to see their dedication, their enthusiasm. It was just absolutely beautiful to see. And it reflects in the attitude of the students. As we walked into the school, we were greeted by kids left, right and centre. We were there for 2 days and they kept showing us their work. It was just beautiful to see.
Yeah.
Really was. So while the physical conditions in the school are pretty awful, there is just colour everywhere. Now, it is bright. The classrooms are bright.
Yes.
Even though, as I say, the physical conditions are pretty awful.
Yes.
And so, talking of colour, one of the things that our Rotary Club wanted to do, and I guess it was my initiative, but we wanted to provide T-shirts with the school logo. They would design it, but we were prepared to provide a T-shirt school uniform, because there's very strong anecdotal evidence that a school uniform enhances the kids' pride in themselves, in their school, their enthusiasm, etc.
And that's reflected in the attendance rates.
Exactly right. So what did we see? Greeted by the principal in a beautiful coloured T-shirt. And we looked around, all the students had them as well, and it was just beautiful to see all of these coloured shirts.
Right.
To the extent that they decided that, okay, visiting Rotarian, you can become an honorary member of our staff. Complete with...
Oh, look at that.
Look at that. Hey, isn't that just beautiful?
That is beautiful. Gosh, I'd want to go to school with a shirt like that.
Of course you'd want to go to school. But the significant thing, that community of Ali Karang, about 500 people, 4 tribes, 4 languages, 1 community.
Wow.
Now, this T-shirt was designed and introduced only a couple of weeks before we got there. So Colin Keel beat us by a couple of weeks. But the T-shirt was designed by one of the staff, an Indigenous lady, Leonie, and it includes the logo of the
4 groups.
4 tribes.
You got the 4 tribes and the 4 languages represented.
4 tribes, 4 languages, as I say, 1 community, and Ali Karang means a dog, and there's the dog paw.
Yeah.
And that's the school logo.
Okay. Oh, that's fabulous.
So, as an honorary member of the staff, I was very proud to wear this T-shirt.
Forgive me for being remiss and not including your honorary staff of the school in my bio when I introduced you.
Yeah.
So you went up to the community. When was that? And you went with the Rotary president, David, did you?
Yeah, David, yes. We went up there in May, just after the boxes were delivered. We sent all of these up there and decided that, David and I would go up there, flew up to Alice Springs, hired a car, went up to the school, and we physically handed out to every student one of these kits. And the excitement when these students got their kits, it was just beautiful to see. It really was.
Yeah.
You walk into a classroom and the kids would come up and give you a high five as soon as you walked in. It was just beautiful. It really was. And the interesting thing about it, the things that tended to excite them as much as anything were the toothbrush and a comb, the hair comb, the hairbrush. But the message of clean faces, healthy eyes was right throughout the school. They have promoted the message very, very well indeed.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do they understand the connection between these beautiful little toiletry kits that are all being given and sanitation and cleanliness, and that if they don't look after themselves, that they could end up with this debilitating eye disease?
They do understand that very well, Anne, and I think I also give full marks to the Department of Education because together with the End Trachoma people put together a very, very good, just little handbill, an A5 handbill, double-sided, that gives the whole spiel about clean faces, healthy eyes.
Oh, that's great. I do know that you can't just walk into an Indigenous community in the Northern Territory. There's a process involved, and these communities are very much run by Aboriginal land councils and eldership and community leaders. Can you tell us a little bit about that partnership?
Yes. I asked the question before we went up, do we need any permit to go in? No, you don't. I said, but I would like very much to meet with some of the community people. And Colin Keel, the school principal, organised for David and myself to meet with the elders and the leaders of the community. Colin wasn't able to be there that day, but one of the other staff members facilitated this. Met with the chief elder, otherwise known as the boss, Derek. Oh, they were just beautiful, beautiful people.
Right. You didn't feel any coolness from them to you. They were warm and inviting and appreciative.
They were warm and inviting, if I could say just a little wary. And they made it very, very clear that they are cautious and wary of who they invite into their communities. Comment was made that they have dozens of people that come in, offer the world, go away, never hear about them again. Asked the question, Derek asked the question, well, what can Rotary provide? What can Rotary do for us? I turned that around and said, well, I think the approach should be is, what are your needs? And let's see how Rotary can best meet them. I got feedback afterwards that sealed the deal.
Yeah.
We didn't tell them what to do. We asked them what they wanted and how we might be able to help. And after a little while, they made it very clear that they're cautious, very cautious.
Yes.
Derek said to me at one stage, are you planning to come back? Looked at him with a bit of a cheeky grin and said, only if we're invited. And the invitation was very, very quick and forthcoming. So yes, they want us to be part of it.
Okay. So this first visit you're talking about, was that this year?
Yes, that was May this year, only a few months.
Is it too early to say what the result of handing out those kits has been?
Probably yes, other than to say that over the last 12 months with the work that our End Trachoma had done, a big wash station, 2 wash stations were put in at the school 12 months or so ago. And the whole process of education was very, very strongly promoted. Central Australia Health Service, they do screening right throughout the Northern Territory for trachoma. And 12 months ago, they were in Alikarung, and they did another survey in June this year. The incidence of trachoma dropped 80% in that 12 months. So we've still got some work to do,
get
that final 20%, and there's no doubt that our kits and the enthusiasm that has been developed by them is going to, I'd say in 12 months' time, to be zero.
Yeah.
That's our aim. That's
for sure. Oh, that's so good. And so having delivered those kits, if you were to go back, would you take more kits or have you got other initiatives that they requested? Where to from here?
Yeah, good question. Where to from here? I guess one of my early observations, predictions, I guess a prediction, was that this whole End Trachoma hygiene kit program, I suspect, will just be a catalyst for something bigger. And that's really what is happening here at Rotary Club of Taree and Alikarung. And I can see that happening variously around the other communities that Rotary is working with. So the sorts of possible projects that came up, all sorts of things. Provision of baby kits. They've asked for strollers and prams. Mm-hmm. They want age-appropriate playground equipment. They want a fence around the school. And that was an interesting one too, because what we first saw were just dozens of dogs lying around the school. And that does present a certain hazard for the students, particularly at lunchtime. I was very, very tentative when I raised this with the elders. I said, the question of a fence has been raised, that I know just how significant, how important the dogs are to your community. And one of the elders just looked over Peter and just said, Ian, the school is no place for dogs. Yes, we're happy to see a fence go in. Now, I've got an organisation that's very, very keen to finance the fence. Not Rotary, quite separate. But we're also looking at other partnerships, Ian, which I think are very exciting. Before we went up to Alakarangi School, we spoke with the principal of Manning Gardens Public School here in Taree. About the same size as Alakarang, about 160 students. Manning Gardens School has got 62% of their students who identify as Indigenous. Thought it'd be a great partnership, and they've agreed to that. With a view to, for example, live streaming classroom activities, lessons, playground activities. So that in itself, I think, is very, very exciting. And that's where Rotary can ultimately step right back. And from an educational point of view, these two schools can communicate. One of the programs that Colin Keel has implemented at Alakarangi School is what he calls from a pathway from birth to community. So the very young one, it's parents as first teachers. Where Michelle brings the parents in and helps them with parenting skills. And it goes right the way through to the senior students, where there's a partnership with Alakarangi Horticulture, a farming arrangement, where the senior students are trained, skilled in horticulture. And it was great to see the teachers working with these students, not only planting, cultivating their own little plot, but also preparing brochures and posters that they can take out to the community market. Now, here in Taree, we've got the Manning Valley Anglican College, which has a fairly strong agricultural department. They are very, very keen to partner with Alakarangi School Garden. So we've got these two schools in Taree just so keen to become involved. It's just a wonderful thing to be able to do something to facilitate all that happening.
Yeah. It's a great story of how a conversation between two individuals, a problem-solving engineer and a professor, and then you came up with this creative idea of these toiletry kits that have just opened the way for this community connection and these marvellous initiatives that are happening across a range of organisations and bodies, now quite independent of Rotary. We're making a difference here to the lives of children and their health and their futures, and we're doing it in service with the eldership in these communities, and that's what it's all about. What do people want? What do they need? And how can we do what we can do without getting in the road and telling them what to do?
How can we partner with them? I think that's the very significant thing of partnering with them, Ian, and that's really how we can just make such a big difference. It's fine to say, now one person came up with an idea, but let's spread that idea, spread the thought, spread the enthusiasm. Yeah, I was quoted in our local newspaper recently on an article about this partnership, where I said this would have to be one of the most exciting and beneficial community projects that I've ever undertaken in 45 years as a Rotarian.
Oh,
it really is just, and to be able to reach out to our Indigenous brothers and sisters is just so important.
And hats off to the Tari community and the Manning Valley community. I was involved in a project in Indonesia for some time, and I know that community, the Tari, gosh, they can mobilise resources and get things happening in a very special way. So it's
oh, that's right. Yes.
Good on you.
Well, just on that basis, Ian, when these fires went through the Manning Valley at the end of 2019, one of our Rotarians, Past District Governor Maurice Stack, decided that we'd try to raise a bit of money locally. And his aim was $50,000. Raised a few eyebrows. A couple of weeks later, we had about $500,000 raised. That was the way our community responded. Just brought the community together just so beautifully. And now, Ian, I so often quote a very dear friend of mine, mentor of mine for many, many years, past Rotary International President Sir Clem Renouf. Clem said, Rotary takes ordinary people and gives them extraordinary opportunities to do more with their lives than they ever dreamed possible. Rotary cares about people. And that just epitomises to me what Rotary is all about. And for me to be able to do my little bit to enhance the lives of our Indigenous friends makes Rotary worthwhile.
Well, thank you so much, Ian Dyball, for speaking with us today about the work in the Northern Territory and the End Trachoma project. It's been fascinating, and I really do appreciate your time.
Very pleased to be able to share it all with you and hopefully a much wider audience.
Thank you, Ian.